I'm lying in my bed, thinking about all the crazy things that have happened to me over the course of the last couple of weeks, and trying to get some rest. I'm sorry, I haven't properly introduced myself, have I? Well, let me start by telling you who I am. My name is Jonathan D. Williams. I've been lying restlessly in my bedroom, desperately attempting to sleep. I'm sorry if I sound a little crazy right now. I can't help it. I'm just so damn scared. The last few weeks have been so full of things that have happened that most people never even think possible. I'm writing this because I can't stand it. I'm so sorry, but if you are reading or hearing this, then I am dead. But don't be sad for me, because now I am finally free. I feel that I must warn you beforehand about the danger you face by reading or hearing this, so unless you wish for a life of insanity and unrest, then quit reading or listening to this right now, or face the dreadful consequences you face by continuing on. Still here, huh? Fine then. Hear my story, but remember that if anything happens to you, don't say I didn't warn you. It all started on a night like any other. I was surfing the web looking for good scary creepypastas and came across thousands of them. I started listening to them as I found it a better and scarier alternative to reading them off the website. As I started asking my friends about a good person who really puts that fearful feeling into your mind who reads the stories online. They told me I should look up a person on YouTube named MRcreepypasta and listen to him tell them. So after a few days of gathering answers to my question, I finally decided I'd gathered enough answers to actually look the guy up and give him a try. I started by listening to the Slender Man and then proceeded to listen to the Pokepastas. Within a week I'd listened to all of the Holder series Pokepastas and all of the lost episodes, but I found that none of them really scared me. Disappointed, I searched for more highly rated videos, which by the way is really hard considering that MRcreepypasta is very popular, and then came across smiledog.avi and listened to it. I found it slightly frightening, but eventually forgot all about it. I was up for hours trying to find really good stories and found only a few I said I would consider. The stories were 1. Christmas, 2. A Knock on the Window, 3. A Memory, and 4. Jeff the Killer. After the first part of Jeff the Killer, I grew too tired to finish the story. Instead, I went to bed after turning my computer off. Just from the small portion of the story I did hear, I thought of the story as the most horrible waste of time I'd come across yet. I went to bed and laughed at the silly thought of a psycho teenager with a knife watching me while I sleep and telling me to go to sleep. Stupid people will write anything to get popular on the web these days, I said while drifting off to sleep. As I was falling asleep, I heard a faint sound like something, or someone, was running across my hardwood floor. Startled, I sat straight up and listened very closely to see if I had just imagined the sound or if I needed to get my 12 gauge and go to town on whatever idiot decided to break into my house, especially considering it was 3 a.m. in the morning and I had to go to school in 3 hours. I live alone and have been doing so for 2 years, or since I was 18. Then I heard the sound again, and it was closer to my door now. "Who's there?" I yelled, ignorantly expecting an answer. After a few more minutes, I just thought nothing of it and went back to bed and simply said to myself that I was just being paranoid and needed to get a grip. I eventually fell back to sleep and woke up the next morning to the bright sun shining through my window. I was relieved to find that nothing was in disarray and went off to school. It was a pretty normal day, like any other. A day with Austin constantly bullying me and calling me names like loser, asshole, and good for nothing, continually bringing me down. I tried to ask the girl that I'm absolutely sure I love out, and he came up behind me and danced me, right in front of her. I was so embarrassed, I decided to go home immediately. As soon as I got home, I started my computer up, but strangely found it already on, which was impossible, knowing I'd turned it off the night before. Although this was very strange, I found it equally as strange that the picture of Jeff was still on my computer. But more importantly, when I tried to exit the website and return to my homepage, I found out that the page was on the computer 50 times, so every time I tried to close the web page, I just kept seeing his goddamn screwed up face. When I finally got back to my homepage, it simply said in gigantic, blood-like letters, Go to sleep. Frightened, I quickly tried to turn off the computer, but I couldn't, and eventually got so scared that I grabbed a nearby baseball bat and slammed it into the computer without giving it a second thought. That night wasn't much better, considering that I couldn't get any sleep. For some weird reason, I felt that I was being watched, so I turned on some TV and tried to fall back to sleep, but I couldn't seem to go back to sleep. Then, I heard another strange noise, like the one I'd heard the night before. Only this time, I heard a small whimper, like someone was in my room. I sat up and tried not to freak out. I kept saying to myself that I was probably just being paranoid and I had nothing to worry about. That's when I heard somebody say something. It was unclear, but it sounded like the voice said, "Go back to sleep." I was so frightened that I ran out of my house screaming at the top of my lungs. I didn't have a doubt in my mind something was in my house. I got in my car and then remembered that my keys were still lying in my bedroom. My nightstand. I didn't have the guts to go back inside and get them, so I just went to my neighbor's house and called the police. They arrived only 5 minutes after I placed the call. I quickly told the officers about the voice and the creepy things that had been going on late at night. "Well, sir, I just don't know what to tell you other than set up a security system and call us back if you see anything happen." "What? You mean you're not going to do anything else?" "What else can we do? We don't have any prints or any sign of a break-ins. This is all we can do for you." "What if it's not a person? What happens then?" "Oh, please, what else could it be? Come on, man, you don't honestly believe in ghosts, do you?" I couldn't answer this question because, at the moment, I wasn't sure what I believed in. After all the crazy things I'd seen, I was ready to believe almost anything. I asked my neighbor if I could sleep at their house, as I was too afraid to sleep in my own. Being the kind, good-natured people that they were, they said I could. So, as I was trying to sleep, I heard a strange sound right next to my bed. Again, I sat up and tried to listened to try and hear the sound again. It was a little different than before, but I did hear it again. This time, however, it was my neighbor's wife, Julia, standing next to my bed, whispering in my ear. Startled, I quickly rushed into their bedroom and found the most gruesome thing that my eyes have ever seen. There, on the floor, was my neighbor's brutally disfigured body, ice cold and lifeless on the wooden floor. I couldn't stand what I was seeing and vomited on the body. That's when I noticed his wife standing behind me with a knife in her stomach. "He made me do it. He's coming for you too, Jonathan. It's only a matter of time before you die too. Run!" She screamed as she fell to the floor dead. I quickly called the police and they rushed back over to find me lying in the corner of the room with blood dripping from my hands and screaming. They thought it was me, and I was sent to a mental institution to get a grip on my sanity. What's funny about all this is I was glad to be sent here. Now it's just me and nobody else here in my comfy little padded cell. I think that he's finally gone. By now, if you haven't figured out who he is, I'll tell you. It was Jeff. I know that it sounds stupid, but it is true. Weeks have passed and I finally got let out of this hellhole. As much as I hated staying there, I didn't want to go. That night was the first night that I have slept in weeks. I think I can finally put my paranoia aside and get my life back to normal. That's when I heard a soft sound, like my window had opened. My eyes snapped open, but I was too timid to look to see the window. Then I decided if he was there, he would finally set me free from this torturous life of fear. I welcomed death and turned to see his face smiling at me. I smiled back and saw my last glimpse of my room before he jumped on top of me and slit my throat. As I was lying there, bleeding out, I could still hear him say those 3 words. Go to sleep.